You are an entrepreneur, a business mogul, a future tycoon, and you've been looking for a podcast that knows and talks business like no other podcast in the world. This is the Biz Beatdown Podcast. If you're passionate about business or itching to start your own venture, or maybe you're already knee-deep in the exhilarating chaos of running your own show, we're dishing out the secrets, strategies, and the street smarts to help you not just survive, but thrive in the wild world of business. And now your hosts, Vincent Penix and Patrick Barber.
Welcome, everybody, back to the Biz Beatdown Podcast with both Patrick Barber and myself, Vincent Penix. Patrick, how are you doing today?
I'm good, brother. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. I'm super excited for this one. This is one I've been waiting for a little while now, somebody I've been connected with for a couple years. But before I introduce the name, I want to kind of give a little bit of a background. So he's the CEO and founder of Fit Solutions, which is a managed IT. They are in the managed IT service space as well as the cybersecurity space, and originally founded in 2012. And his name is Ephraim Ebstein. Ephraim, how are you doing today?
Good, man. Nice to see you, Vincent. Great meeting you, Patrick.
Likewise.
Awesome. We're super excited to have you on. So, Patrick, I'm gonna kind of give you and the audience a little bit of backstory. So, Ephraim is actually a huge part of the reason why I decided to start my own business. So he was kind of that final push into going into it. We had both joined. This was back in around 2020. It was like a little before like everything went crazy with the pandemic, I think. And we both joined a mentor. Yeah. We both joined a mentor program that was under Grant Cardone. And so we, obviously when you join those groups, you're kind of figuring out, okay, like who really kind of like knows what to talk about, all that kind of stuff. Eventually I saw Ephraim and everything that he was doing too. And I was like, okay, this is definitely the guy to reach out to. Make a long story short, him and I started talking for a little while. And right around the time that I wanted to start my business, I feel like, and this is going to be actually a good thing for our audience to hear, is like just being super vulnerable myself, is like when you're about to get into starting your own business, there's a lot of, at least there was for me and a lot of other people I've talked to, there's a good amount of doubt that kind of goes through your heads, like, should I really do this? Like, like, especially like I have all my finances at a relatively good spot right now, do I really want to like take that risk and take that on? And so I called Ephraim because obviously, he's done well for himself. He's the CEO of his company, and he's been through this. And I was like, hey man, I think like I want to do this. I'm in a pretty good spot to do so, from what I know, but like I don't know, like, am I making the right decision here? And I don't know if you remember all this conversation ever, but basically what he told me was he asked me a couple of questions. We kind of ran through the situation that I was in. And at the end of it all, he's like, well, Vincent, listen, he's like, you're at a point right now where you don't have any kids, you don't have any like serious like responsibilities. If there were ever a time for you to kind of like go in and take the risk, it would be right now. And if worst comes to worst, for some reason, which it won't, but if for some reason, like something, what's the worst that's going to happen? Like of any, like not many people have the time in their life where it actually is the right time. You're in that time right now. And so like, if you're going to do it, I think now's the time to do it. And that conversation is actually kind of what finally pushed me into just being like, you know what, I'm just going to go for it. And the next week was when I started everything off. So Ephraim, thank you, and I appreciate it. I want to give credit where it's due. Yeah.
Starting a business is like having a baby, right? Like there's no good time to ever do that. Like it's never going to be perfect.
No, never. It's always going to be hard, no matter what. But yeah. I remember that. So Vincent, I think you reached out to me in that we were like on the Grant Cardone mentorship program. It was like $9.97 or something.
Yeah,
and I think you messaged me on Facebook, and then we started talking, and that was it. And I remember that conversation because I was like, it's funny. I was in I remember being you just not even that long before, because I started my business in 2012, at the very end of 2012. And I remember like before I had like fully committed, I was thinking about it like, I want to do this thing, and just being so scared. Like for me, I feel it was like the scariest thing I ever actually did was quitting my job that was paying me well, and like leaving that to complete uncertainty, not really having anything saved in the bank, right? So I was leaving like, I was probably making at the time in 2012, like it was like a little over 100K, which in 2012 was a whole lot more than it is now, right? So maybe it's like 150K in buying power an hour or something like that. It was good. I was super comfortable, but I was living like not above my means, but everything I got, I was just like, spending it, going to restaurants, traveling, all that kind of stuff. So
we all do when we first get our hands on some money.
Yeah. No financial, training on that. Just, I came from middle class, so I just didn't know any better at that time. But to leave that, basically no savings started. And I remember like I was kind of the same thing. No kids, like nothing that big. And it still was so scary. And I reached out to a couple guys that had businesses. And I remember one guy told me, like, he's like, man, I know a lot of business owners and they're not as smart as you. Like, if they can do it, you can do it. And I was like, man, that's a good way of looking at it. And then the more I thought about like, what's the worst thing that would happen? I was like, it's not going to be so bad. Like maybe I have to ask, to, live with my dad or borrow some money or go work at Starbucks or something. It's not that big a deal. Beg for my job back,
Well, luckily that's not the route that it went, and you do it. So, why don't we do this? Can you give a little background about both yourself and your company? That you feel like would be good to share, at least for everybody here.
So, a little bit about my business. So, we are a managed IT and a managed cybersecurity business. So, basically, we're business to business. Our clients are other companies that need technical support to solve day-to-day issues, we also do the cybersecurity monitoring. So we're actually staffed 24/7 here in the United States. We're monitoring networks for potential data breaches and preventing data breaches, and also helping them meet compliance requirements in the process.
Awesome. Cool. So, for you, let's kind of like, if you don't mind, as far as like the founding of your company, what inspired you to really like start your business? I know you mentioned that, you're kind of looking to get into it so people talk to you about it, but like what really, I guess, inspired you to start it? And then maybe some initial challenges that you faced when you started up.
Yeah, man. So I remember when I was younger, I had an uncle that had a business, and he lived in Germany. And I remember just like, I thought it was so cool. I was like, man, if it seemed like a very far away dream, but I knew I kind of wanted that. And then when I was in my late teens, I started feeling more entrepreneurial. I started playing around. It's an MLM, like multi-level marketing group. And the group that I got kind of tied in with was not good. They were more of a pyramid scheme than like a true legitimate MLM. So that didn't last too long. And I just felt kind of, I don't know, that kind of discouraged me a little bit. And so I started going more the safer route, because that's just what I knew from my family, from my parents, from those around me, is like, get a good job. And that's what I did. I went to a trade school, and I got a degree in IT, in computer repair, networks, and so on. And the thing about it was, before I went into school, like all these guys that were getting out of these schools were getting really like getting snatched up immediately. It was still the .com bubble, and they were getting snatched up. They're getting jobs. I remember there was a buddy I had that was like maybe 2 years older than me. And so when he graduated, he got like hired by Motorola for like 90K. And I was like, our parents were making like 40K. Like, so this was, we're like, this is crazy, right? And so I was like, this is what I'm doing. But when I got out, the .com was over. So there was a lot of people that were way more experienced than me looking for jobs. And then here I am with just my little paper degree, hoping to get my first job, and nobody was giving me the shot. So I ended up taking an internship, and I worked for free for about 6 months. It was unpaid, and I treated it like a job. I showed up every day, showed up on time, left on time, did hard work, didn't really goof around, put my nose down because I was serious. And then after that time, they're like, man, this guy's pretty good. Like, let's find a way to hire him. And that's what they did. And then I kind of like started jumping around. I started working for a consulting company, and that I loved because I was helping all these different things. And then they went through acquisitions. And then at that point, I was about 30. And I remember I had a buddy, and he was like pushing me. We were working out in the mornings, and he's like, why don't you have your own business? And I was like, the more he talked about it, the more I was like, man, I need to do this. Like, this is the time. I keep thinking about it. I need to do it. And the more I thought about it, the more I started getting serious. And I like spend my after hours like mapping out, like creating contracts, how I was going to service customer, figuring out pricing. I was like doing all the foundation work, setting up LLCs, started reaching out to people, said, hey, I'm going to be doing this. If, when I get my first customer, can we like partner in this way? So I started like establishing how I was going to do it. I had no idea how I was going to sell my first customer. I had no idea how I was going to market. I didn't have a logo or website yet. I knew I'd get to that eventually, but I was just so nervous. And I remember like right before mind you, I had been working on this for maybe like 5-6 months, like all this stuff, getting it ready to launch, like how I was going to do service. And I got a job offer from another smaller MSP, and the lady's like, look, I'm going to make you I'm the owner. You're going to be my number one. You're going to like run this joint. Like, I need you. I want you. I've heard about you, all these things. And it was so tempting because it was also significantly more money than I was making currently, and more than I had ever made. Right. So, but I remember I remember thinking it out. And I remember if I jump to my company, there's a chance that this network I've built over time, there's going to be some people that want to come do business with me. But what if I go over there and then they want to come and then it doesn't work out at this company? That would be, they probably won't follow me a second time. And what if they go over to me, this other company, and the company is really good? They're also not going to want to leave because they're happy there. And so I said no. And that was like, when I said no to that job, there was no going back. Like before that, it was like, I was pretty certain I was going to do it. But when I said no to that money, like that life-changing money, it was cemented. There was no other choice than to be successful after that for me. That's awesome. And yeah. And I remember, and that's like when I was like in your shoes and I was like making those calls, and I was like, yeah, should I do this? And it was like, I kind of thought like, what's the worst that could happen, and all of that. And that's, it wasn't very long after that, maybe like 2-3 months after that, I got that first customer. I got that first opportunity. And when that opportunity came by, I was ready to strike. So I like to say that luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And I was prepared. Opportunity came back. People could say I was lucky, but no, it was preparation met opportunity, and I struck and I got that first deal. But it still wasn't enough to like really. It was enough that I could kind of live on, but not enough that I could pay taxes on. Not enough that I could do everything else. So I was like, I can't.
That's super low. That's like $600 or something like that.
Yeah, it was. Well, it was about $5 at the time. I remember it was $5,000 a month.
Okay.
So, but I had to pay rent. I had to like eat. There were certain tool sets that I had to pay for. Like, so I knew I had to very quickly go and sell some more contracts, because I knew I was going to be owing Uncle Sam half of that. So I'm like, I now have to go sell to back pay Uncle Sam that I'm like essentially taking. So, but then I was like in it. I was going hard, and I had never worked a sales job. So and I kind of, maybe it probably would have been better if I had prior to that, but I never like sold gym memberships. I never was like at a car sales or anything like that. So I had zero formal training in that capacity. So that was definitely a weakness for me, but I did believe in what I was doing. I knew I had to be successful. So there was nothing that I was like not willing to try or do to be successful.
That's awesome.
Love that.
I always love asking entrepreneurs this because, you know, we all go through it, you know, when you're kind of taking that leap of faith as you described there, where you're passing up an opportunity or quitting a job or whatever the case may be. I've been there. I quit my job to start my own business as well. And I'm kind of the firm belief that people that make that take that leap, right, and do that thing, they're one of two things: either they're running towards something or they're running away from something. Either, you know, wanting the success or, you know, running away from, you know, the failure or their current situation. Which bucket would you say that you sit in terms of when you went through that experience? Were you running towards something or were you running away from it?
That's a great question. I was definitely running towards something, because I actually was, like, I hate to say this, but I was an amazing employee. Like, there's some people that start the business because they cannot, it's like impossible for them to work for someone else. And that wasn't my issue. Like, every boss I ever had loved me and loves me still. Like, I have zero bad blood with anybody, even the most difficult, like, challenging managers. I'd find a way to work with them and be professional and get them results and all those things. Like, so I wasn't leaving because I hated that. But what I really wanted is I you know, obviously had dreams and things that I wanted to achieve, but this sounds really kind of funny, but the one thing I wanted a team. I wanted to work with people, because I had a taste of that at one of my previous jobs where we had this really like amazing team. And I remember, man, like, we're like, it just, if you've ever worked, like, if you've ever been on a sports team and the team's just jiving together and like, you're scoring, you're winning together, it's contagious. It's like, there's this feeling for that. And I had it. And then, you know, people changed, acquisitions happened, things changed. So it wasn't there anymore. I wanted that again. I was like, I want to have an all-star, like, pro team where we are just winning together all the day, all the time. And every day is like fun to go to work. Like, I wanted that really bad again. So that was one of the big reasons that I did it. I also felt like what I was doing wasn't being, not that it was unethical. I just felt like, man, there's like so much that could be done so much better. And so I was like, if I do it, this is how I'm going to do it. So that was a big part of it too. And then it really actually wasn't until much later that I got more clear on my personal goals, like what I personally wanted. So when I was starting out, it was really more about those two things than anything. And then later I started saying, oh, well, what do I really want? And then that started shaping more the direction I was going as well.
Out of curiosity, so, you know, obviously you take the leap, you start the business, things are tight, you know, you're kind of a one-person show, I'm assuming, until you start hiring. When, if ever, I don't know, maybe you haven't experienced this, I think you probably have, but when was that moment where you're like, kind of like take the sigh of relief where it's like, okay, this is actually working. I think this might work out. When was that moment, if you've had that moment?
Oh yeah. So that sigh of relief, I remember, okay, it wasn't like a real sigh of relief, but I remember at month 3, distinctly, I remember thinking like, it's working. Like not perfectly, but I'm like, I'm getting checks. I'm not on the street. Everybody's getting paid. I was like, this is going to work. Like it, you know, I remember that at that month 2, 3, I think we added on 2 more customers. We had the original customer and we added 2 more customers, and they were paying their bills. And I was like, and I wasn't on the street, and I was like, this is working. I was like, this is going to work. So that was amazing. But I still didn't have, obviously, even then, I didn't have, it was me kind of running the show. I did have one business partner at the time, but I also, one thing I did is I remember is like, if I do this, I don't want to be small. And the reason for that is like specifically in my industry, I remember I don't want to be the guy that's picking up the phone on call in the middle of the night. I want to go on vacations because I knew some guys that kind of ran their own shops and they just, dude, they worked way harder and probably made less than I did as an employee. So it would have been, I would have preferred to stay an employee than do that. So I was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to grow it and be successful, that I can have the vacations. I can do all the things that I want to do. I wanted that freedom. And so I knew that required a big team. And when I was pitching services the first time, I was always pitching it as a team. Even though I wasn't lying because I was going to do it. But number two, I also did start reaching out. I started making relationships with people that could contract and all this. So when I was presenting even that very first contract, I was like, hey, I'm starting a company. I'm the CEO. I have a team. We have, here's the guys. I got Matthias and Matt and John, and these were all, and then I got Joel, my partner. So it was like, yeah, we had this like team of 5 or 6, but those other guys, I was the only one like really starting it. They were all like different. Most of them had jobs, but they had like unique schedules where they could like moonlight and like help me out and do things like that. And I had like kind of set that up so that like, hey, if I get stuck and there's a technical issue I don't know, I could go to Matthias, who was a really smart guy, or John, who was a really smart guy, and they could help me out on that. Or if I needed a weekend off, I had this other guy that could kind of fill in. So I started like, I was always using us, we are. I wasn't using me, my, I wasn't using that vocabulary. So I was always establishing it as a legitimate working, functioning business.
Awesome. And that's actually like what I wanted to ask about too. So obviously you knew that you wanted to kind of grow it out to a team. You knew you wanted to have the right people around you. So like, what were the strategies that you used to kind of like scale and grow your organization?
Yeah. So, in the beginning, because I didn't know. Okay. So one strategy I did is I reached out to every customer that had worked with me in the past that wasn't a current customer of the business I had just left.
Mm-hmm.
So the business that I had just left went through a couple acquisitions and they lost a lot of customers in the process. So I beelined it for all those lost customers. And I was like, hey, I know it didn't work out with All Covered, but I've started my own business, Fit Solutions. Like, would you consider giving me a shot and exploring if there's an opportunity for us to work together? And I would take them to lunch. And so that got us a few customers that I had worked with in the past that I was able to capture again. And then I just started literally inviting every single person that I could possibly think of to lunch, whether it was a prospective client or, maybe the Cox sales rep or the Comcast, Spectrum Comcast sales rep. Like, it didn't matter. Like, if they were even in the business world, I was inviting them to lunch and just talking with them, telling them what I was doing. And it started getting me referrals. People were thinking about me. I was just, without knowing it, but I was, promoting what I did, who I was, the success that my clients had, how we were, driving change. So I was doing all this promotion, but I was cold calling in a sense, but I wasn't like, hitting huge lists cold calling. I was just inviting people to lunch. I would also walk into businesses, and see if there was opportunity that way. That wasn't super successful, but I still did it. But just the more people I could talk to, that I did it. And that was a big thing. And then the other thing is I was really focused on every time I would sell a contract and I would get money, I would invest it in trying to hire another person. So I was always hiring and building out the team, and I was living below my means instead of like taking that money home as profit for myself.
Mm. Interesting. That's actually a really good segue. I know IT manage IT services and cybersecurity. Obviously, those two industries are in pretty high demand for what they do, and so I suspect you're still kind of in hiring mode. If I had to guess, what is a founder, owner, CEO like yourself in the cyber space and managed IT services space? What do you look at in terms of how you hire? Are you implementing some sort of hiring strategy internally? Do you have your own resources that you're doing this through? Obviously, Vince and I are both recruitment agency owners, so that's something that we're always kind of paying attention to. Do you work with third-party recruiters? If so, what do you look for in those partners? If you don't mind just kind of pulling back the curtain a little bit on your hiring processes and strategy.
Yeah, it's great. So we do have an internal HR team that helps us with the recruitment and hiring. We do, though, sometimes work with recruiters as well. So, like, if there's certain jobs we need, or we're just having a hard time filling it, then we'll try and do internal first, and then if we're getting like past a time to fill like metric, then a lot of times we'll start reaching out and getting help with that. So that's one way we do it. When we're hiring, I'll tell you what I used to do, and my team is okay at it, but I'm sure you guys are probably way better at it. Like if I could have been a great headhunter, I think, because I recruited so much talent. I would just like even get a whiff that someone was good. I didn't even have to know them. I didn't even know nothing. But if someone said even like, "Oh, I know this guy is really good," like I would be on like a bloodhound, like a trail to find and meet this person, and I already knew I probably wanted to hire him before I even really knew anything about him. Just by that, because people don't always say that unless somebody's good. And I'll give you an example. I remember we were trying to sell a customer, and they're like they wanted to leave. They hated the current provider. They said they were terrible. ... They said, but there's this one guy that's good. Oh, there's just one guy that's good. But she wouldn't. And I was like, man, so I was like, man, I gotta get his name. So I was like, oh yeah, what's his name? Maybe I know him. And she spilled his name. And right away, like I started looking for this guy, and I somehow found him. I don't know if it was LinkedIn or something. And then I called and I said, hey, my name is Ephraim. I know you don't know me, but I've heard about you, and I heard you're amazing. Can I take you to lunch? And that guy I ended up recruiting that guy. He was on my IT team for many years. And he grew into leadership, made a huge impact. He's still a dear friend. In fact, I'm a business partner with him on another venture now. And that's just one example. But if someone ever mentions that someone is good in passing in anything, like I'm hunting them. Or if I hire someone, I'm like, hey, who did you work with in the past that was good? Did you ever work with someone that was really good? And then I try to I'm just like relentless in finding these people. So that's what I used to do. Now it's a little more challenging with as you scale and duplicate that. We have a little bit of that, but we are a little bit more organized now. And one of the reasons is we've gotten very clear on our mission, our vision, and what our core values are. And even though I did a lot of that hiring that way, there was a lot of people that I think, especially once we started scaling, there was a lot of misalignment in where we were going as a company and the people that were being hired, where they wanted to go, their personal, professional, financial goals. And to be really successful, you have to align the personal, professional, financial goals with the goals of the company. And now when we put out like a job posting, if you even look at our posting, it looks not way different, but like a little different. You're like, they're talking a lot about their mission. They're talking a lot about core values. It's not like, oh, I need a cybersecurity penetration tester. These are the skill sets. like, and I want these degrees. Like, I don't even say anything about the degrees. I do say the skill sets, but I talk a lot about like the core values and stuff. So someone, when they look at it, they might not notice right away, but some people do notice. They're like, something's a little different. And then when they go through the interview process, we essentially have like the initial interview, which you're just trying to see, is there a cultural fit here? Could this work out? Do we think this would work out? If the answer is yes, then it moves on to a operational interview, which might be a technical interview if they're a technical person, or if they're project management, be going deeper into project management and all that. And then the third step we do is we have them present to us their core values. Our core values. So they do a presentation to us presenting our core values, and we're not asking for definitions. What we're asking for is how they use those core values, either professionally or personally in the past, or how they would use those core values if they were to work here to be successful. Now, when we ask that, that's kind of weird, and they present for 5 to 7 minutes, and then we'll follow up with questions. But when we do that, a couple things happen. Some people, they're like, this is weird. I don't want anything to do with this. Like, I'm just looking for a job, right? They kind of go away. Other people sometimes don't even show up. They ghost us. Some people, they show up and they phone, and we said, hey, I don't really want definitions. We know what the definitions are. Give us like how you'd use it. They just show up with definitions. They don't put any effort in. And then other people, they take it seriously, and they'll like give you examples of how they did it. And one of two things happens then. One, you figure out if it's not going to work based on their view and how they utilize core values and what they think about them and the examples they give and the experiences that they've had. And you kind of start figuring that out, and you don't have to waste 3 to 6 months to figure out it's not going to work, right, for them or for us. And so that's it. And then on the other token, you're like, this is the person. This is the person I want. And on the same thing, it kind of magnetizes and starts pulling these people that are like, man, I've been looking for this company. Like, this is the company I've been waiting for. And that's amazing. And so our success ratio on good hires has gone up dramatically. And our team is like stronger and better than we've ever had.
That's awesome. That's a really interesting way I've never really heard of, kind of like to be able to incorporate the company values in there like that. But
yeah,
it makes a ton of sense, and it's a great idea. Patrick, I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
No, I agree. No, yeah. I mean, I've seen different types of litmus tests in the past with clients, and then ourselves actually hiring. But I do like the spin of here are our core values, give it back to me, and what they mean to you. I think that's very interesting. It, like you said, it helps kind of weed out the people who are actually serious, and then the ones that are serious and actually do present legit. It's just a matter of, are you a fit or not, right? Are we aligned on these values, or are we not aligned? And assuming everything else is correct in terms of skill set.
Yeah, because I've had, like, if I look at the people that have worked at Fit in the past, we've had some amazing talent, really talented people that didn't either embody the core values or just weren't quite aligned, and they weren't going where we were going. And so ultimately it didn't work out on the long term, and they were better off at a different organization that was, more their speed, and we were looking for a different type of person. And so, the technical side is super important, but I feel the cultural side is more important for the success. And the technical side, I mean, I still need someone that has technical acumen, but there's still a lot they can learn on the technical side. Whereas if the core values don't speak to them, they're culturally not aligned, they don't want to be going where we're going, it doesn't, it's probably, not the right company for them.
Yeah, makes sense. appreciate you sharing all that and kind of pulling back the curtain. I know that's a big part of a company's identity and secret sauce is how they build their teams and all that. So I appreciate you sharing.
So when you guys when you guys are doing like some of your kind of recruiting, do you kind of leave that on to the organizations, or is that like, how do you guys see other organizations doing? I'm just kind of
not necessarily. I mean, so I can speak for our screening process when we're talking to candidates. In my experience, usually the best placements, you know, our job is obviously to help our clients hire people that are actually going to fit, right, and deliver the value and not quit, you know, 6 months into the job and all of that good stuff. And so, you know, one of the big things I think over the last at least couple of years in many job markets is about salary, right? People making moves based on getting a big payout. And, you know, the economic data has been pretty clear about that over the last year or two. Salaries have not grown tremendously in almost every industry, maybe marginally to keep up with inflation in some cases, and in some cases exceed that by a little bit. But by and large, companies are not stroking these massive checks to get talent in the door. And so, you know, obviously that's a constraint when you're trying to hire, because, you know, just to outbid somebody is pretty easy to do if you have the bank to do it. But the other thing too is actually, to your point, making sure that they are a fit. And so the way that I like to lead with this is really understanding with the candidate what's going on with them that's not great with their current situation. Because I know if they're talking to me, a recruiter, whether they have a job or not, there's something that is suboptimal going on in their life. And I want to know what that is. Yeah. What is that pain? What's going on with you? Because that's going to tell me whether or not my client, like if we were hiring for fit, you know, can fit, and what fit brings to the table for an actual employee. Does it actually solve the problem that this candidate is currently experiencing? So an example of that is if I'm on the phone with a candidate and I say, hey, Vince, you know, what sucks right now in your life? And he tells me, well, I'm working 80 hours a week and I'm never home with my kids and da-da-da-da-da. And I know for sure that Fit is going to want him to work, you know, they want people that are going to show up on the weekends and answer emails at, you know, at 9 p.m. I know that it doesn't matter whether Vince is a fit or not, right? Technically, right? Or from a background standpoint. I know that the problem that Vince is experiencing, if he were to make a move with you, then I know that would continue and it probably wouldn't work out for you either. And so that's kind of the maneuver, the exercise that I like to go through. And conversely, if they're like, yeah, I love my job. I love what I do. I'm passionate about cyber, but you know, I'm not in love with the culture that I'm currently in, and you know, want to work with more high performers. Boom. Well, let me tell you about my client Fit and what they're going, you know, what they have going on. And so now we're actually solving for something, right? And they get energized. And so.
And an important part of that that I want to add, just Ephraim, so you know, is like for us as recruiters, the more open that our clients are with us about what exactly they're looking for and what are those cultural fits for them, the easier it is for us to be able to kind of like screen that out ahead of time and make sure that that's actually going to be there too. So it's important for you know, and one thing I do with my team, and I know Patrick does with his, is having those conversations beforehand before you even start recruiting to understand exactly what it is that you're looking for. What are the things that aren't on this job description that are really important to you? That's one of the questions I always ask. So yeah, just making sure that's there too.
I wanted to kind of change subjects here, if that's cool. I like to do this.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. So cybersecurity, you know, in my opinion, and I'll just speak for myself. I feel like myself, along with a lot of other people, are really kind of uneducated and ignorant to cybersecurity in general and how important that is. Could you kind of just give us a quick kind of reality check of the risk of cyber attacks and what that means for business owners, for people just in general, and how, generally speaking, how unprepared the majority of folks are for these events if and when they do occur? Just kick me right in the nuts if you don't mind, and ruin my day.
I know. Ephraim
induce
right
me
now
into a panic attack, Ephraim. Yeah.
Ephraim's like, well, how much time do you have?
Yeah. It's funny, like there's so many stats, and people love talking about all the stats and all this kind of stuff. And I don't think it like drives it. I don't think the stats actually move anybody to do anything. When you're a business owner, dude, you're just worried about like revenue, growth, not losing people, like, and that's honestly what you should be worried about. And then they kind of think like, oh, I got cyber insurance, it'll cover me. But I'll just tell you the reality, dude. Like, we deal, and we're just a microcosm. So this is not even a stat. Like, our customers, I cannot tell you how often we deal with like legit cyber breaches. Like, we had a law firm, it was about 5 weeks ago. Customer had been a client of ours for about 3.5 years. Never had a major data breach. Little things here and there. And it was a Friday evening, and we start getting blown up like through our tool sets that like something's weird in the network. We start the investigation process. Within a few minutes, there was some criminals that had exploited basically like a 0-day attack, and they were on their network, and you could tell these guys were pros. Like, they were not, it's not some kid in the basement. This is like a team that treat this like a job, that want to get paid. And they got in, and there was probably like 3 or 4 people working simultaneously on the network. Once the first person gained access, you probably had this team. One guy's in there like breaking password hashes. Another guy's scripting the ransomware. Another guy's in there figuring out where their backups are, deleting their backups. And the other guy's in there, figuring out how to disable all their antivirus stuff. And we were like, immediately on it. We responded. We worked with the IT team. We were able to get the whole thing under control and locked down. But this was a really big law firm. Like, had that not happened, that would have, like, the IT team for sure probably would have been fired. And it would have been multi-million-dollar data breach. And they might have been in the news. Well, probably wouldn't even been in the news. The news doesn't even cover like all the, like, unless it's like, at this point, they don't even put it in the news unless it's like just a unicorn company getting breached, because even what we would consider big is not even big enough. It's too common. And that's like one example. But we stop data breaches on the regular, especially like people logging to other people's emails, forwarding emails, intercepting wires, tricking people to that's a really big one. I'll give you another example. This just happened last week. Really sad. It was a friend of mine that came to me. She was, but there was nothing I can do. She came to me and she's like, "Hey, I'm applying for this job." And I went through the interview process, and I got an email, or maybe she got accepted. She got like an email to like set up all her like direct deposit stuff.
No.
Criminal was on the network. They saw the new hire. They sent the email. She put all her stuff in, they cleaned her out. Like, we see that happen with escrow companies, people like trying to wire their money to like buy a new house, and the escrow company has criminal on the network, and they're just sitting by till it's wire time. Then they send out the wiring instructions that they want to go out, to go to the wrong place, that kind of stuff. Within organizations, they're changing payrolls. Ransomware is still huge. They don't talk about it as much. So if you're a company, at a certain point, I mean, even at the small one, you're dealing with it, but like at a certain point, you got something serious to lose. And we get to clients for 2 reasons. One, something bad has happened, and they now experienced the losing side. Or compliance. So compliance is another huge driver. Today we had a phone call. IRS came out with a bunch of compliances. So organizations that are doing tax preparation or providing tax software, they have all these new compliances they have to go with. They don't have a choice, and so that's where we see an uptick happening. But the problem is with the cyber landscape is, 20 years ago, who was a cyber criminal? It was like some, antisocial dude in his mom's basement with a hoodie. Like, no, like, you should see what these people are now. These are, and I'm not even talking about like the political threat actors. I'm just talking about people that want to make money. They run it Like I could be a guy in India or some other country, and I'd be like, dude, I can make a lot of money like hacking organizations. And you know what? I'm not hurting anybody. They got insurance, like, and if it happened to them, it deserves it. And then I go hire some really smart guys, and I hire Vincent and I hire Patrick, and I'm like, hey, this is how I'm going to teach you how we do it. And it's a numbers game, just like sales. You know, you keep trying these things, you try these things, and you pick up the phone and you do all these different things, and then we're going to get paid. And eventually, like, you try enough companies and you get it, and you start reaching them and you start getting paid. And that's what happens. And it's a legitimate, I don't want to say it's a legitimate business because it's not, it's illegitimate. But it's unethical business, but it is business, and they make a lot of money, and they have employees. They probably even have like payroll and recruiters and everything too, believe it or not. So
sweet.
Yeah.
I mean, for folks that are unprotected, right, don't have any, like, let's say maybe you've got like your Norton antivirus, right, set up on your PC,
Yeah.
but that's about it. How susceptible? I mean, how is it for some of these pros to come in here and just completely destroy?
Yeah, I mean, the antivirus, like, even if you have the best one, right? Yeah, it might stop like a tool that's being automated, but you're fighting. If you go to war, and let's say you're in Afghanistan or something, and you gotta like protect this village, right? Like, how are you gonna do it? And the Taliban's coming, and you gotta keep them out. Like, you need guns, but you also need soldiers, and you need a plan, and you need to know where your weaknesses are, and then you need to fortify around that. And you're like, okay, this is where they're going to come in, and this is what they're going to do. And a lot of businesses, they try to fight a war with guns and no soldiers, or one soldier. You're like, hey, here's our IT guy. Here, let me get you the tools you need.
Mm-hmm.
It's not how it works. Like, in war, you need like an orchestrated. You want the SEAL 6 team, and that's really what we bring. But if you're going to do it yourself, you have to do that. So you got to have guys working around the clock, monitoring alerts within a few minutes, like investigating them, not being distracted, helping someone with their printer issue. Right? They got to be doing this kind of stuff. You have to have people that can do assessments, do penetration testing. You have to have engineering talent. You have to have all these different things in addition to the tools, because the criminals, like, I could breach, if I'm telling you, like, I could breach almost any company just by picking up the phone in a matter. Like, when we do what's called pretext calling, a lot of times banks hire us to do this. Other organizations, because they're not required, don't do it as much. But I pick up the phone, and if they have more than like 30 employees, more than 50 employees, if they have 100 plus, I'm guaranteed to get it. Like, they can't even stop me. And I'll tell you how I would do it. And because we do it in pretext calling, we call, and I'd be like, hey, Vincent, so great to meet you. My name is Alex. I'm the new IT guy. I work with Patrick, and Patrick's this IT
That's it?
guy.
That's it? You just pretend?
You know what? We need first pause. I'll tee it up. I'll buy a domain that's like one letter off, and then I'm gonna send an email from Patrick, like with one letter off, and I'm gonna email you, and I'm gonna set it up in Gmail so it's gonna go through your spam filter, and I'm gonna say, hey Vincent, this is Patrick, CIO. I just wanted to introduce you to Alex. He's CC'd here, and he's gonna be reaching out because we're gonna be going, solving some cybersecurity issues in the network. Then I'm gonna call you, be like, hey, I'm Alex. I don't know if you got the email from Patrick. I'm the new guy. So great to meet you. Yeah, looking forward to the holiday party. Man, it was a great weekend. Hey, I need a few minutes on your computer. When is a good time? Now, or should I call back on lunch? And you're gonna let me in 8 out of 10 times. And if you don't let me in, I'm going to call the next guy. He's going to let me in. Someone's going to let me in.
Especially like a line level employee who is just like got a mountain of things to do, and they're just trying to get on to the next thing. And yeah.
That's how they got into the MGM. I don't know. Do you remember the MGM was like,
yeah,
dude, it cost them so much money. In
that
fact,
was
they
crazy.
didn't even fight it. They just said, we're screwed. You got us. Here's like 40 million or whatever it was. 100. I don't even know. Like, you got us. We'll write the check. Just please let us back into our network. But that's how they did. They picked up the phone. They looked on LinkedIn, and they saw that Patrick is the new guy that just got hired at MGM, and he's on the IT department.
Poor kid. Poor kid.
So proud. Patrick's proud that he just started his new job at the MGM. And then they call the help desk line, and MGM's a huge organization, have all these technical people. And I say, hey, Vincent, I'm Patrick. I'm the new guy. Yeah, I just started yesterday or last week, and I just need a password reset into the network I'm having trouble getting logged in.
Damn, that's scary.
Scary.
That's scary.
Yeah.
That's it.
I always worry about that. What about my bank account? Like,
what tool's going to stop that? There isn't. So you need to be like looking at, like, yes, you need all those tools. I'm not saying you don't, but you also need to be looking at behaviors on the network, because if their team was on point, had they done that, the criminal logs in, and all of a sudden, Patrick, let's say he works out of wherever, I might be logging in from, a different Virginia or something. Like, wait, why is Patrick logged into two places at the same time? That needs to be investigated.
And that's when your team is there to kind of like identify that before, like, once things start getting kind of weird. Yeah,
like, I mean, at this point, it's not like every company is probably getting breached to some degree. Yeah. And others are more major than some, but like when that breach happens, it's just a matter of like being able to detect it and do something about it quick. That's kind of where we're at in the industry. So, and that's where we come. That's where we solve. We're the no one can stop all the breaches, but you want, like, once again, you can't stop the gunshots from coming, but who's the soldiers you want on your team shooting back, right? Like, I want the Navy SEAL team. That's who I want, right? I want the best. And
are there enough Navy SEALs around to protect everybody, though? If you wanted to be protected,
no,
I mean,
probably
okay.
not.
And is that what you're experiencing in your hiring?
I mean, that's why the company. I think that's why the industry is growing so much.
Yeah.
I mean, it might have slowed a little bit with the economy and stuff, but at the end of the day, companies are losing money. You lose money so many times, you're just like, we can never have this happen again. What do we need to do? Oh, let's hire people. And so that's what's happening. Because I guarantee MGM probably has a completely different cybersecurity posture and team on there that after that 40 million or whatever, multi-million dollar loss. Plus, not even to mention, that's just the check they had to stroke. How much did they lose in bookings? How much did they lose in the casinos, in the restaurants, when all their stuff was down?
Yeah. And all the new investment they needed to make to correct the
it's probably ungodly, right?
Yeah.
It was probably ungodly.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So I guarantee that they have a completely different mindset on cybersecurity now, and that they're doing things differently. And probably some of the other casinos too, that saw that and were like, dude, that cannot happen to us.
Yeah, I would hope so.
Yeah,
it's big. That's definitely a wake up call.
Sometimes the criminals, they'll pay the ransom to give it back, and then 6 months later they'll try it again on the same company. They're like, oh, they're so stupid. They didn't change anything. We did it again.
I mean, the second breach is probably it's like the second sale. It's always easier,
Yeah, I'll give you half off on the second one.
Exactly. We did it one time. It should be easier the second time around. We know how to get through this.
Yeah. You guys, this one's on you. You guys didn't change anything. You deserve it.
Fair game. One thing, so Ephraim, one thing I know about you, because we've been connected for a little while now, is you actually. So I've noticed that you invest in like coaching and mentorship yourself and for your business and everything. I believe you work with both like Cardone and Brandon Dawson sometimes. I just want to like hear about hear you elaborate on that a little bit, as far as like, why is it that you decide to kind of invest into that type of like coaching, and what are some of the biggest lessons that you feel like you've gotten out of it since you started?
Man, yeah, I remember. I think I was like, I remember being scared, and I did kind of like look for some guidance, like we were talking about when I started the business. But once I was going, there was a lot of things that I just felt I could figure it out, or I didn't want to do what everyone else is doing. I wanted to like figure out something innovative that was like somehow drastically different, but I felt like I was oftentimes going uphill. And the bigger the company got, the more I started realizing like, man, there's so much I still don't know. Like, so I started looking for mentorships. That's where I kind of jumped on that. I had been watching Grant's YouTube videos and listened to like this Young Hustlers podcast. And then I did that kind of that $1,000 mentorship with you. And that kind of got me, like, oh man, I should do more. Then we invested in Grant Cardone training. Later we went to like GrowthCon, and then I started doing more stuff with Brandon Dawson. But I had learned that, look, I didn't know how to sell properly. I had never been trained in sales. I didn't have financial literacy very well, reading profit and loss statements, how to invest my money, all those type of things, building cash balance. Like, these are all skill sets that I learned later on from mentorship. Some of that was books, some of that is, podcast videos, and some is paid workshops or paid in-person coaching. So I've done all of it. And, actually one of their, Ty Lopez has a TED Talk. It's an older one, but it's actually really, I think it's really good. And one of the things he's kind of promoting books, but one of the things he said in there that I never like really hit me is like how successful would you be if you started a business with Bill Gates or with Sam Walton, who started Walmart? If he was your business partner and you guys started a business, like, what do you think your chances of success were going to be? And you're like, very high. Or if you had a personal trainer and Arnold Schwarzenegger was going to be your personal trainer, or you're going to start a charity and it's going to be like with someone that's built like one of the largest charities in the world, like what's your success ratio? And it's very high. It's like, you can get all this knowledge for a few dollars out of their books, and most people don't do it. And I was like, and he's like, what if you could like a computer download those experiences and that information into your brain? Like, how successful would you be? And I was like, man, that was like that thought process, that statement. I was like, that was impactful for me. And so that completely changed how I thought about mentorship. And I started like looking for more and more mentors. And so Grant's been a huge mentor of mine, even though I wouldn't say he knows me like particularly closely or anything. Who does know me a lot closer is probably his business partner, Brandon Dawson, a huge mentor of mine. And Brandon even put me, I don't know if you have read his book, 9-Figure Mindset, but I don't have a whole chapter, but there's like I mentioned in there, let's just put it like that. He kind of tells a little bit of some of my story. And I've just learned so much, even like what I was telling you about with the core values, like that I learned from Natalie Dawson, Brandon's wife. And there's just so many things that I've learned that I implement, and that has, brought success forward sooner. I don't want to say it's a shortcut because it's still the hard work, but it doesn't take you as long to figure it out. Right. So I can't, now I'm always open to mentoring anyone with the knowledge I know so far, but then, there's so much where I want to go that I haven't gone. So that's where I need to be mentored. So it's kind of like, I'm always looking at someone that has done it bigger than me, more successful than me in certain areas. And then that's what I'm trying to learn from and copy.
Totally. I'm with you. And I'll go ahead and say, I've also, invested in mentorship and training and books and all of that. And I think, and I'll say it, I think it is a shortcut. As long as you're getting the right mentor and the right guidance. I think really what you're doing there is your time, right? That's what you're saving, is you're saving yourself time, and then ancillary components. I love the way Tony Robbins frames this really nicely. He says, turn what would be years into days or weeks, right? Of essentially kind of fumbling your way through the journey to success. So that's cool. And so I guess that's a nice segue. What is on the horizon for you at Fit? I mean, what's next for you guys? What are you working on? What's kind of the next?
Yeah, so I'm actually a business partner now with Grant and Brandon.
Oh,
And
nice.
we purchased and partnered on another IT company based out of Chicago. And now we're looking to do more acquisitions. We're also coming up with a 10x cyber brand that not coming up with, we have it. So if you go to cardoneventures.com/10x cyber, you kind of see that page, and we're building that further in partnership. So, kind of writing that brand, that 10x brand recognition to expand out what we're doing. And then, I'm also looking to maybe do some federal stuff as well. Like we've always been in the private space. We're not going away from that. That's still my number one focus, but kind of looking at, we want to land our first federal contract. We have the intention of doing that this year as well.
Yeah, I would assume that's a whole nother ball of wax with security clearances and all of that.
Yeah, it's crazy, and I think this is the power of partnership. Like, I would love to have some of the top people in my organization to someday be my partners, and so I've done that now twice, and I have my COO Natasha, and dear friend of mine. Like, I love working with her. We work so well together, and now she's also my business partner because we're gonna we teamed up to kind of do the federal thing together. So now she's not just an employee. We created a new organization called Federal Cyber Systems, just to go after federal contracts. And the advantage is she's also a woman and she's minority, and so we get to I set that up that she's going to be the CEO of that organization and the larger shareholder, so we kind of get through a lot of those benefits as well, and we can land some cyber contracts together. So just things like that. Like, I want the people. I want to be surrounded by winners. So that means finding winners, but also means like bringing up the right people around you. Not everyone wants to go up, but the ones that do, that are willing to do what you're willing to do, then yeah.
That's awesome, man. Well, I'm glad to hear. I didn't know all the new things that are to come. So really excited to hear, and I'm super happy for you, man.
Yeah. So we're just cranking, trying to grow. And really, at this point, I think my mission has changed a lot from when I started. What my mission now is to impact lives. It's not, I guess, departed that much as it's gotten refined. And so it's to impact lives through technology. And that means obviously impacting the lives of the organizations that we work for, supporting and helping them with their goals. But it also means impacting the lives of my team members and helping them hit their personal, professional, financial goals. And the only way that I can help somebody with that is to create opportunities, and that means I have to grow. So if I grow, then I can make new opportunities to help those people, and that's a big driver.
Awesome, love it. Cool, Patrick. Anything else from you today?
No, man, that was a lot. I learned some things for sure, and so yeah, no, I'm good.
Awesome,
man.
Thank you so much for.
This has been huge. Real
of
privilege.
Course.
Yeah.
Of course, man. No, we're really excited to have you on. It's obviously good to talk to you again. And we'll be connecting again soon. So it's always good seeing you, man.
You too. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thanks, Ephraim.
Thanks.
Cool.